Erev Shabbos. This coming week, in fact, Sunday night, will usher in the holiday of Shavuot. We will rejoice in the holiday of the giving of the Torah, as our Siddur calls it, Zman Matan Toratenu. Accordingly, the appropriate wish in my yeshiva was always Kabbalah Torah b'simcha uvepnimius. May you receive the Torah with joy and inwardness, just like we have a unique greeting on top of Chag Sameach or Good Yom Tiv. For each holiday, Yom Kippur, we wish Gemar Chatima Tova. May you be sealed in the book of life for a good year, or Chag Kasher v'Sameach. May your Passover be kosher and also happy. So Shavuot has this special bracha of may receiving the Torah on Shavuot bring you joy, something that uplifts and inspires you. And also may it touch you deeply. May it mean something to you and enrich your soul. Part of joy and inwardness is understanding. That's not all there is to it, but it's a part. So let's touch on something that came up last Shabbos, actually with about half a dozen or more people who noted with surprise that last week when we said the blessing for the new month of Sivan, we also included Avarachamim in our prayers before Musaf. To understand the appropriate and well-placed surprise of those people, and I'm sure there were more who noticed it, just didn't have a chance to mention it, have a look at page 454, 455 in your Art Scroll RCA Siddur if you have it handy. This prayer, Avarachamim, was probably written around the year 1200 or so, because we find it in Siddurim dating back to the year 1290 of the Common Era. As the note at the bottom of page 454 tells you, it's a prayer for the martyrs of the Crusader era. The Crusades ran for 200 years, starting in around 1096, and they were a series of expeditions for Christendom to liberate the Holy Lands from infidels. Fortunately, we were not the infidels in charge of the Holy Land at the time. They had in their sights the Muslim rulers who were at the time the Byzantines. Unfortunately for us, some Jewish communities lay in their path. So when the Crusaders went from England and France towards Jerusalem via the Rhineland, they practiced slaughtering us to refine their craft so that they'd be in good shape once they got to Israel. There was a lot of killing in those times. So this prayer by an anonymous author expresses our trust that God will mete out justice upon those who spilled so much of our blood. It's so very significant that we do not ask for license to do this on our own, nor do we take the right to seek vengeance or even justice. We leave it in God's hands. The one thing we ask, as the prayer mentions, may it be le'einenu, may it happen before our eyes. It's one thing to trust and to have faith that evil will ultimately be punished. It's another level to ask that we see it with our own eyes. This prayer and even this word are part of what keeps us from becoming the merchants of random religious violence and revenge throughout the ages. That, by the way, is an advertisement for our final meeting in 2 weeks' time of the Rabbi Sachs Bayview Reading Group. Throughout this year, we've been reading Rabbi Sachs's book, Not in God's Name, Confronting Religious Violence. It's an excellent book and has led to some great conversation, and you are all most welcome to join us for the concluding session, even if you've not made it to all the sessions or any of the sessions thus far. Okay, back to the Avarachmim prayer. We say it on Shabbos as a remembrance for those who were killed in the religious violence of the Crusader times. However, on Shabbos Mavorchim, it's a little bit of a happier time, even more than a regular Shabbat, so we leave it out. But last Shabbos we said it. Here are 3 answers as to why. A short one, a little bit longer one, and a more in-depth reasoning as to why. The short answer is this: because the Luach says so. The Luach tells us to. What is the Luach, you ask? The Luach, the calendar, is the Luach Minhage Beis HaKnesses, the calendar of the customs of the synagogue. This is the one we use. Published by Ezra's Torah. It's called the Ezra's Torah Luach. A very creative title there. Published by a charitable foundation based in New York that's been around for about 110 years, and they publish this calendar as a community service. They charge you the printing cost, about $15. Anyone can get one. We order a few copies in the summer for when it comes out in Elul before the high holidays, and we keep a copy or two in shul, and oftentimes the gabayim keep one handy at home or elsewhere. You can buy these in the Jewish bookstores in Toronto in the weeks leading up to Rosh Hashanah, or if you'd like us to order you one, get in touch with the office. There's a Hebrew version, there's an English version, and they sift through the various customs of Lithuanian yeshiva style traditional orthodoxy, and they publish a guide day by day according to that. When is this most helpful? One example is the different haftorahs. You notice that in the back of the Chumash, when we come to the haftorah section, when we have a sometimes when we have a double parsha, you have to choose which haftorah are we going to read. Do we read Bahar? Do we read Bechukotai? Or is it a different haftorah altogether, not connected directly to the parsha, but rather to the maftir? For example, Parshas Zachor, right before Purim, which has its own haftorah no matter what the portion of the week was. Sometimes it'll say the Sephardim read this one, the community of Frankfurt reads this, Ashkenaz starts here, and so on. So we keep track of it with the Luach. Looking at you, Parshas Achrei Mos. Another time it's useful is to know when Tachanun prayers are recited and when we leave them out, like in the month of Nisan, or this time period where we are, the first 12 days of the month of Sivan. So if you looked in the Luach here for last Shabbos, let's have a look. For May 24th, 26th day of Iyar, Shabbos Mevarchem. Here's what it says. We bless the month of Sivan. We do say Av Harachamim because of Sephira. Now, this is a very helpful book, very accurate, but it's not the best written book ever in human history. What would make it better? If it had a little more cross-referencing to make it a little more user-friendly. If it had that, they would have written "See Shabbos Mavarchem Iyar" a month ago. So I'll give you that. We turn back to page 135, and it says on April 26th, the 28th of Nisan, right after Pesach ended, Shabbos Parsha Shmini, says the Haftorah, and it says, we bless the month of Iyar. We do not say Kel Malay. However, we do say Av Harachamim, that was composed for the martyrs of the Crusade period, most of whom were slain during the period of Sfiras HaOmer. So there you have the longer answer. Last Shabbos, even though it was time to bless the new month, and in fact the Siddur does say to omit it on Shabbos Mevarchim, we nevertheless included Avarachimim in memory of the martyrs of the Rhineland massacres during the Crusader period. You can also take a look at the note in your Siddur at the bottom corner of page 455, where it says this. Let's see. During Sephira, however, all agree that Av Harachamim is recited even on Sabbaths when it would ordinarily be omitted, because many bloody massacres took place during that period in the time of the Crusades. Here, too, there are varying customs, and each congregation should follow its own. Okay, so now, the longer answer. How does the Luach know what's the right thing to do? How are they sure what prayers to say and when? So that is a much richer and deeper conversation about the diversity, and shall we even say pluralism, within traditional Judaism. About 30 years ago, Rabbi Beryl Wine spoke in Baltimore, and he said, no one is more diverse and pluralistic than Orthodox Judaism. We have Sephardic, Ashkenazic, we have Litvak, Galicianer, we have Hasidish, Yeshivish, and he went on to list a few more sub-communities. And then he concluded, but we all have Torah, meaning that everyone agrees you daven every day, and you daven Musaf on Shabbos, and you bless the new month on the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh. The variance comes when we ask, do we include this particular prayer on Shabbos Mavorchim, or do you omit it? So you have people who do this, people who do that, some do and some don't, but we all agree on the basics. So indeed, how does the Luach know? One piece of go-to research material, which my Rosh Yeshiva recommended, is a sefer called Nitai Gavriel. It's called The Plantings of Gavriel. Nitai Gavriel, and the author is Rabbi Gavriel Zinner, who lives in New York. He's still working and has so far published over 30 volumes of very practical halacha on the weekdays, weddings, burial and mourning, Shabbos, welcoming a new Sefer Torah into your shul, Birchas Hachama, that blessing we say over the sun, thanking God for creating all the firmament around us and so on. We say that bracha once every 28 years. Tefillin, many topics. The books are very comprehensive and they have extensive notes and sources. Nitze Gavriel is very rich in that he compiles the various customs and their sources and gives you a sense of what's more normative and what's less frequent, but still certainly legitimate. The biggest section is two big volumes on the laws and customs of burial and Shiva and Shloshim and Kaddish, because the minhagim from place to place throughout Europe and around the Jewish world vary so widely. So this is the volume titled Laws of Pesach, Part 3, Last Days of Pesach, counting the Omer, Lag BaOmer, and Tiglachas Yeladim, boys' first haircuts, which are a big custom on Lag BaOmer, particularly in Meron in Israel. So he writes here in chapter 39, which is about the Shabbos after Pesach and all the Shabbatot between Pesach and Shavuos. Paragraph 3, he writes, even those who omit avarachamim on Shabbos mevarchim, and on Shabbosos, which occur on any day when Tachanun is omitted, nevertheless, they say avarachamim on the Shabbosos between Pesach and Shavuos, because at this time in history, there were numerous persecutions. So we say it for those communities who were martyred. The footnotes here cite the Levush, Rabbi Mordechai Yafi, the Ramah, the Moshe Isserlitz, Magen Avram, Avram Gambiner, Yavitz, who is Rabbi Yaakov Emden, son of the great Chacham Tzvi of Amsterdam, Shulchan Aruch Harav, Chaye Adam of Rabbi Avram Danziger, Aruch HaShulchan, Rabbi Chil Michal Epstein of Vilna, among several others. But wait, there's more. Paragraph 4, the next paragraph says this. Some say that on the Shabbos when we bless Sivan, we should say Avarachamim, but not when we bless Iyar, because it's still the month of Nisan, when we omit Tachanun. And he says that is the minhag of Karlin. Who are the Karliners? That's Lithuanian Hasidim, if you can imagine. Others say the other way around. Avarachamim, yes, when blessing Iyar, but not when blessing Sivan. Galitzianer Hasidim, especially Bells. And others say that you never say Avarachamim on Shabbos Mevarchim, following the practice of the Vilna Gaon, which seems to be the prevalent practice in Israel. The bottom line is this, quote, each place should follow the local custom, and in a place where there is no established custom, perhaps it should be said, particularly in our era when a huge portion of our people were murdered, al Kiddush Hashem, and this time, may their deaths be avenged. End of quote. So here you have the sources, the varying customs, the logic and background to how the Luach of Ezra's Torah makes the call for Jews of Ashkenaz, for the most part. Now don't think that we're in complete servitude to the Ezra's Torah Luach and we're bound to whatever they decide. It's our custom in KST to say Hallel both on Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, and also this past week on Monday, Yom Yerushalayim, the anniversary of the reunification in the Six-Day War of 1967. Remember the good old days when wars were over in 6 days? Anyway, the Luach does not make mention of these days because in the Lithuanian yeshiva style of orthodoxy, the modern secular state of Israel does not have religious significance like it does in the eyes of religious Zionism. There's an interesting footnote to that also. In the yeshiva of Panovich in Bnei Brak, which is a flagship yeshiva in the Haredi world, used to and probably still does fly the flag of Israel 1 day per year on Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day. The original Rosh Yeshiva, Rev Kahaneman, felt that it was important for the yeshiva to express its hakarat hatov, its gratitude and appreciation to the state of Israel for protecting and funding the yeshiva. But back to the idea of a luach. The luach is, of course, this luach is not the only one. There's a different one for Sephardic congregations who famously say slichos all through the month of Elul, whereas we say only for the week leading up to Rosh Hashanah. There's also a luach, a calendar published by the Rabbanut, the chief rabbinate of Israel, which does, of course, have Hallel on Yom HaAtzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim, but the Torah readings and the holidays are for Israel, which of course has only 1 day of Yom Tov, but there's too many variations for us to keep track of to make that much practical use for us here. So for 95% of what we do, we follow the Ezra's Torah Luach, like most congregations in North America that daven Nusach Ashkenaz. It would be nice if in times to come we could have more conversations about topics and points in our day to day that pique your interest, whatever prayers we would like to understand better, and have more discussion about why we do what we do. Someone asked in the past year or two why we say the Bryce of Rabbi Yishmael first thing in the morning, the 13 principles of interpreting texts. That's page 48, right before the first Kaddish de Rabbanan in the morning. We spent a few weeks going through those after Shacharis, a point or two every 3 days. At the end, we all understood it better. So thank you to everyone who asked last week why we're doing this, and yasher koyach to those who thought about it but didn't get a chance to ask. Let's have more open conversations about what we do, why we do it, what it means. It's good to do it, but it's even better to understand as we go along. And as we all know, there's always more to learn. And again, echoing the wish from the outset, may we all experience Kabbalat HaTorah, receiving the Torah b'simcha u'b'penimiyut. May we receive the Torah on Shavuot with joy. May it touch us deeply in our minds and our hearts and our souls. Shabbat Shalom.